technical difficulties and the troubleshooting. I hope the rest of the day goes a little bit smoother. All right, now I'm going to introduce our next speaker. She's going to lead a session titled Voices That Matter, How Speaking Up Builds Strong Communities. So we're going to do, through reflection and storytelling, our session's going to explore speaking up and sharing our truth and how that can build trust and strengthen our communities. So our next speaker, her name is Precious Berry. She is a 19-year-old youth activist and dynamic public speaker dedicated to amplifying the voices of marginalized communities. She's a proud member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and began her journey in civic engagement at just 14 years old by interviewing local politicians and immersing herself in historical and political education. Since then, she has inspired thousands of young people, particularly with Black and Brown communities, to speak up, get involved, and challenge the systems that impact their lives. Widely recognized as a leading voice of Gen Z, Precious has delivered keynote speeches, facilitated community forums, and engaged directly with policymakers to drive change throughout the St. Louis region. Her work emphasizes the importance of youth inclusion in decision-making processes and highlights the transformative power of grassroots activism. She is a proud high school graduate of Riverview Gardens and a sophomore at Washington University in St. Louis. She's a founder of the first NAACP chapter at WashU, continuing her mission to create space, spark dialogue, and demand justice for her generation and those to come. So let's welcome Precious Berry.
Morning.
Morning.
Do a little bit better than that. Good morning, everybody.
Good
morning.
Yes, my name is Precious Berry. I am super excited to be here with you all. You all look so lovely, and I cannot wait to get straight into our conversation today. So I am super excited to be with you all today. My name is Precious Berry, as Alexis mentioned earlier. I'm a youth activist, author, and public speaker here in St. Louis, Missouri. I am also a rising junior at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm super excited about that. Thank you. I got involved at the age of 14 by interviewing local politicians and teaching myself specifically about history. Now, during this time in my life, I didn't see a lot of young people my age being a part of the decision-making process, and I wanted to make sure, as we know, as our late great Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm states, bringing a voting chair to every room that I stepped in when it came towards advocating for young people. So what is that voting chair that needs to be at every table? How are we reminded that we have to show up for each other to thrive? I realized that just as a young person, I wasn't just representing myself, I was representing my community and peers. Looking closely into our communities, I slowly realized that young people didn't have a voice. Now, this is kind of funny to think back, but when I got involved at 14 and 15, I came from a recent school district, Riverview Gardens School District. You all are familiar with that school district. It is a provisionally accredited school district here in St. Louis, Missouri, that has low socioeconomic development. It does not have a lot of resources compared to a lot of school districts here in St. Louis, Missouri. And one thing that I always reminded myself is that I have to show up for this school district. So whatever stage that I came on, no matter if I came from Washington University, I am a proud Riverview Gardens graduate. So I continue to do the work regarding to that. I also realized that my voice can sometimes, and anybody's voice that sometimes can be silenced, ignored, and most importantly, did not have merit. I never thought in a million years that my voice would not have merit at such a young age as it did now. That was because I didn't see a lot of young people in rooms during the decision-making process. I want to thank Light for allowing me to share the stage with you all and to continue to be a voice for so many others. It's nothing like going back into your community, pouring wisdom and insight. You all are continuously doing the work in the community by bridging that gap between community and public health. Being on the forefront and exposing and giving opportunities to stakeholders is what's most imperative. You all are appreciated. A couple of weeks ago, I participated in a light summer camp, and when I tell you I had an amazing time with the students, they just brought so much joy to my face. I basically had a similar session about building trust in the communities and learning how to use your voice through public health. And I was so surprised because I asked, what is the definition of public health? And all of the students raised their hands. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know what public health was when I was their ages, but just hearing them speak about what public health means to them and how they are contributing to their community was just such an amazing event, just an amazing opportunity. And later on throughout that session, I have a children's book called Why I Use My Voice, which I can pass around later for you all to see. This book is specifically about teaching how to know your identity at such a young age and using your voice in any space. And I tell people, learning to be uncomfortable while being comfortable. So throughout this opportunity, they were just super amazing. And I'm thankful for that opportunity that you all have given me because every year I look forward to just being a part. Before I get into my speech, I want everyone to ask themselves, what is the meaning of owning your voice? What does it look like when you are advocating for you? How is it going to affect you or be beneficial to you? How are you going to make change in your community if you are not utilizing it? Now, I know that everyone in the room here is a catalyst in some shape or form, but it's important to know what is your passion that you have for anything that you are trying to pursue. As a young person, those were the questions that I began to ask myself at the age of 14. I looked at my community and I didn't see the resources or had access to them. I didn't see the equality. I didn't see the justice, and I didn't see the things that I knew that my people needed. Coming from Riverview Gardens too, I recently was at St. Louis University and I did a lecture on the school to prison pipeline, if you all are familiar with that, with young students that are stripped out of the classrooms into the system at such a young age. And I had someone come up to me and they said, I didn't know that Riverview Gardens had bright students. And that for me was my motivation to be able to come into rooms, to advocate and to continue to advocate for those students whose voices were not heard or didn't have any merit in any shape or form. And I also learned that broken systems didn't define my future, but learning how to work in those systems taught me how to make those crooked lines straight. You know the saying, no matter a person's zip code, everyone deserves the quality education and the right resources just as others to register their full potential in whatever path that they want to take. It's imperative to know that our voices seek justice not only in our households but also in our society and our communities thus far. Now, we all have those times in our lives where we feel like our voices are shunned. If I'm being honest and transparent, mine had trembled in my young adolescence. When I was younger, or when I was in high school, I didn't have a lot of resources that I could reach out to. I didn't have the familiar support as I did now. And so I look at people in the room here that has helped me throughout this journey and so much more. That was a crucial part of my adolescence because I felt that there wasn't space to be authentic and to represent myself. And I knew that I wanted more, and I knew that my peers wanted more, and that was my continual journey to where I need to go. But today we are here to speak about the importance of relationships and mentorship in the community. If I'm being honest, mentorship saved my life mentally, physically, and emotionally. I went through a strong era in my adolescence where I had to make some crooked paths straight and lean on people who supported me, guided me, uplifted me, and most importantly, motivated me to show that my future was bright. And I also have an amazing friend here, Milo McGee, who has also been a part of that journey of just supporting me throughout my college experience. But there are so many women and men that I can name who has getting me to the level where I am today. But most importantly, I have never forgotten to thank God for protecting me, keeping me together, and showing me that there is another way out. I believe that relationships are vital to not just young people, but any people in society. It can bridge that gap that we all might need to have a sense of direction and motivation in our lives. I believe that when we have relationships in our lives, it is imperative. And I know that we all go through that phase and we feel like we got it on our own, but hey, I was the same way. But I'm here to say that we need people to support. You know, having a support system is very vital in our lives. It will aid us in so many directions, directing us in ways that we might need. And I also want to challenge every adult in the room, try to mentor someone who doesn't have the last name as you. As I mentioned earlier in my speech, that mentorship has saved my life. And I see a lot of young people that are in our communities that need that support, that need that guide, that come from broken systems. And I think that when we speak about public health, we forget about environmental racism, how we have some communities that have lead in their homes and how that can affect their mental health, how our white counterparts are, they might be challenging to our Black students, but at the same time that Black students are disciplined higher than our white counterparts. So we have to make sure that we are advocating for a lot of our young people, give them the resources that they need and being an aid in their life, most importantly. But there are three main points that I want everyone to lead with in this room today. The first one is discovering your identity. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned is that we must continue to discover who we are as individuals in society. During this time in our lives, we begin to question who we are as individuals and what path should we take when we are on this ride. Now, personally, along this journey, you have to silence the voice of the world to hear what whoever or God is trying to say to you when you are in this presence. Now, next I discovered is knowing my worth. When I learned that I continued to notice what was important for me, it took no bounds. I remember the time when I knew that my voice was my superpower. I knew that as a young Black woman, every time that I stood foot out the house, I knew my calling was higher, and I had to rectify any injustices and stereotypes that were put on me in my operation. After this, knowing that when you know your worth, you know who will see you as an individual, and you learn to find yourself through these experiences in any shape or form. And the last one is taking action. What is the action that you need to take to make a difference, not just in your community, but also within yourself? How can you continue to navigate through life's challenges and still be a catalyst in any way, shape, or form, or in your own way? When you do that, you will make a difference in any given shape. I know that I'm only 19 years old, but I'm doing this line of work so far in politics and studying my history thoroughly, that there are two roads that I see a lot of people take. The choice to think that the path is all about you and your success and how high you can climb in your career status, or the so-called save the world approach. That you have the vision in the world and you will fight tooth and nail to change because you are different. To everyone in the room, I want you all to prove that the stereotypes and misconceptions of you are wrong. Now, I won't say that this road might be easy, but trusting in yourself when you are afraid, when you are sad, when it's hard to make a decision is what makes you most fearless. As I was gathering this speech, I had to understand that this was coming from a source greater than myself, and most importantly, that I was speaking towards my future. I want everyone in this room to go over and just be the amazing person that you are. Take the world by lead because you got this. Thank you. So, I'm Precious Berry again. I'm super excited to be here with you all today because I feel that times like this, we are constantly reminded of why we need to show up in our communities, why we need to come in solidarity, and being in unity makes us even more stronger than ever. So I have, if we can go to the next slide, I have some interactive things that I want us all to do together because, this is a conversation on building trust in our communities. This is a conversation of making sure that we are working together and that we are creating that community circle of sharing our truth. So I see that we are on you all, this is my left side of the room. Okay, we're on the left side of the room. If we could just get 4 to 5 people at a table, if some of the people that are like 2 to a table, if you can merge over to the next table, and we can get into just a little session that I have here that is creating your circle and making sure that we are building trust. So each group is giving a prompt specifically. The prompt is making sure how can we show up in our communities. If one of you all could share a time that you had to speak up for yourself or for someone else. The other prompt that I'll give to the table is describe a moment when someone words made you feel seen. And the third prompt is what is one truth you wish more people knew about you. So we'll have 10 minutes on this specific slide. So I see there is 1, 2, 3, 4. I want you all to merge up. Okay, we have 5 tables. Okay. So this specific table, I want you all to share a time that you spoke up for someone. Okay. So you all can just speak to each other about a time that you feel like you showed up for someone else. This table, describe a moment when someone's words made you feel seen. And then I guess, okay, I'll basically have you all do the same question. What is one truth you wish more people knew about you? One truth. Yes, what is one truth? Oh, okay. Yes, what is one truth you wish that more people knew about you? Okay. That's a good question, you know. So yes, we're gonna have 10 minutes for this, and then I would love if I can have a few hands just share out about, this is about building trust. So this is a great exercise for us to do. I think one is to do one, right? Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You open it up for the right.
Alrighty, you all, let's start gathering that.
I hope everyone feels it.
This is a good start.
I'm always very
Renee, just use
Alrighty. I would love to hear who would like to share something that stuck out to them at the table, a powerful reflection. Anyone who would like to go first? Okay. If you could please say your first and last name.
How long do I have? Like just a minute? I'll keep it briefer. Something that, so we were sharing about a time that you spoke up for someone else. And something that I always think about, a person that I always think about in my life when this question comes up is a girl that I used to mentor as part of a mentorship program in Los Angeles, California. And she was born here in the US, but her parents are undocumented. And her parents did not complete elementary school and came here to give her and her sister a better life. And so I think about her a lot because I started mentoring her when she was 13 years old, and she's now completed college, and the mentorship program was specifically for young kids in Los Angeles whose parents did not go to college, who would have been first generation college students, who had that dream and that goal to go to college. And so she's, like I said, she's now completed college, looking into grad school. And I mentored her from 13 until, I think she's about 25 now. Actually, not sure. Yeah, so she's doing really well, and so I think that made a big difference in her life, just speaking up to her, speaking up for her on a daily basis, like writing letters of recommendation for her, advocating for her, pushing her to do everything she can to go to college and complete college. And yeah, so I'll just leave it there, but that's one example that I had.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else like to share out? Anyone? Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to come off mute? Oh, come off mute, okay.
I think we said let me say weaponizing silence was, so our question is one truth we wish more people knew about us. And the truth was, some instance, silence can be used to protect. And so that you don't lash out in the moment. And so you may seem quiet about the situation, but you're being silent because you need to protect yourself. And we also shared about the fact that people don't know that there are dualities in us. You know, sometimes you only see the quiet nature, but you don't see the other bubbly nature. And another shared humor. Very few people knew there was humor in everything they did. And the last one we didn't get to was if we were told it, we would be, it's embarrassing, right? It's the word, like if we found out that truth, we will all be embarrassed. So we gotta continue this because we didn't finish.
Oh wow, I definitely believe that. I feel that when we share our truth, sometimes we can save other people's lives just by sharing our story, who we are. So I would also love to hear from what was a time that someone made you feel seen at the table, if anyone would like to share. All right, Mr. Wendell.
Okay, so I'll report out for the full table, and I'll say that two themes I saw. The first is family, in that a couple of our members of the table leaned on family and shared a story where family supported them. And then the other concept was mentors. So So we spoke a little bit about mentors and how it's important to be able to lean on folks that are not necessarily family. And I shared a story about a former constituent saying how much she missed my service.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that point, I just talked about an experience I had with my family. There's been a bunch of different times where I guess there's stuff that I don't think anybody observes about me, and like my tendencies or maybe a habit that I have or my reaction to, like, specifically when I drink coffee, there's like a whole thing with me, and I get sleepy and I get energetic, and yeah, it's a whole thing. But my family will be like, hey, like, maybe you shouldn't drink that much coffee. Or I just appreciate like the little things that I didn't realize other people could notice about myself, and that makes no coffee today. But yeah, so I feel like that those moments make me feel seen the most.
That's you. All right, hello. So I low-key kind of combined like the first prompt, the time you spoke up for someone, and then the one truth you wish people knew. So I just graduated from WashU and public health, and in a lot of my courses, I was just at that time like advocating for like the north side, the west side, predominantly Black communities. Mainly because I later found out that there's a narrative out there where there being students or colleagues of mine are being told don't cross the north of Delmar, right? Which continues to perpetuate biases and other things, right? So I am actually from the north side. So as I'm speaking, I'm also talking about myself. I'm talking about my community from like lived experiences. So one truth that I wish people would know, being a Black woman, being a queer woman and Black from the north side, I feel like people instantly try to put you in a box, right? But I try to, similar to what you were saying with being in the Riverview School District, kind of just like trying to rewrite that narrative and show that it's not a thing that you are inferior or you're not, you lack whatever, is mainly because the opportunities and the resources weren't given to people within these communities and why they can't achieve, you know, being like the best that they could be, right? So yeah, that's my trick.
Yes, we have one more on Zoom.
I think two.
Two
Quick.
more.
Okay, hi everyone. So let's start with Nancy. So Nancy on Zoom responded to the third prompt, which was one truth you wish more people knew about you. And so Nancy said, for the third prompt, one of my additional thoughts is that a lot of people around me don't necessarily know certain things about me because I tend to keep different aspects of my life compartmentalized. And I think it can be helpful to make an effort to share more across those boundaries, talk with work colleagues / friends about what I do outside of work and vice versa. So let's give a round of applause for Nancy sharing. Thank you very much. And next up is, I apologize if I mispronounced this, Srimanthi. To my breakout room for the third prompt, two things that I wish others knew about me is that I am funny and enjoy quick wit and also feel overwhelmed sometimes, just like how a few others may feel. Thank you.
I definitely agree with Samantha and Nancy. I think that I could definitely relate to one truth that I wish that a lot of people more knew about me, and that would be to know that I'm human and that I make mistakes. I think that as leaders, there are so many narratives that they put on us that we're perfect, that when we come on this stage, that we don't live a life outside of the stage. And I want people to know that as a young person, I still make mistakes, and I'm learning from those mistakes. And I want to communicate that I make those mistakes because we are all growing individuals in society. We learn through anything in shape or form. And it goes definitely next into why I created my book called Why I Use My Voice. So this is actually a physical copy that you all can see. It's called Why I Use My Voice. I was writing this for specifically more about attention. I wasn't doing it for that. I was writing this for the little girl who thought that she had to shrink to survive. I was writing this for kids in the classrooms like mine, where folks didn't always feel like they were always feeling safe, to be honest. So I've also learned that real communities aren't built off affection. They're built off people who show up and show up for themselves. And that takes empathy. And that takes grace. And that also takes listening even when it's uncomfortable. So that goes into the next one. We're going to do this really short and quick. Can we go to my next slide, please? Yes. So I want you all to just have your own little self-reflection. I want you all to just ask yourself, what does it look like when you are trying to be honest in your space? How do we build trust even when it's uncomfortable? I spoke about the, I could relate to the second question because as I went to the university, coming from Riverview, I experienced imposter syndrome. Is anyone familiar with it? Syndrome. Yes. So just experiencing that imposter syndrome, I had to learn to be comfortable while feeling uncomfortable because I was exposed in environments that I've never been accustomed to. So I had to feel like, how can I just own my space all over again? I know that I worked hard for this moment, but how can I make sure that when I'm in rooms, I don't feel like I'm in competition or I don't feel like I have to be compared to my other counterparts. I can just stand up strongly, boldly in myself. So I want you all to do like a little 3-minute reflection just about these two questions, whatever one that speaks to you. And I would just love for 1 or 2 people to just share out. So yeah, let's just have 2 minutes. Also, too, there are journals on you all's table, so it'll just be a great time to utilize that if you want to. So, yeah. We're just going to share out loud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for time purposes. Oh, did you have anything to share? I did. Okay. Yes. All right.
I'm Ellen, and the one that says, oh, my vision is like great. How do we build trust even when it's uncomfortable? I think this is a huge one for me in my life, and it's in some ways easier for me to talk aloud to people, and one of the ways I have found building trust in relationships is really meaningful on my end that I can control is by sharing vulnerably about myself in an appropriate way. I'm not saying, dump it all out for somebody you don't know, but I think being willing to be a little uncomfortable and a little exposed in front of somebody else helps them feel so much safer to feel like they can share, scary parts of themselves with you. So
I love that one. We have another one in the front.
I'm Nishi Parkinson. I am the program coordinator for the Midwest DC for our scientific work group, and I am delighted to be here today. For me, that piece of the imposter syndrome that Precious spoke about, a lot of times when we're in spaces and places, we want to fall out like a taco. And everybody knows how taco is made. It has layers, it has ingredients, it has a hard shell or a soft shell, right? And when we have imperfect pieces of our lived experiences that may trickle over into the workplace, that may be a trigger or a trauma, we don't know how to pivot to have that scary, honest space conversation. As Black and brown women, and I know this, we're scared that we may lose our job or we may be too tough-skinned and we may have said something that may have inflicted pain on someone. So most often we crawl into our little shell and we talk it to someone else to kind of vent. So with that being said, I think honest spaces should be made, like if you're a doula mom and you're helping a woman have her baby, right? Or you have that maternal setup for breastfeeding and lactation. I think companies should do an honest space arena, a closet, a setup, something similar to this over here where you can have that honest space and not be deemed for it.
My name is Smiley McGee again. I am currently doing an internship called the Pershing Fellowship, and it's here in St. Louis. And as part of the requirements, we have to take a storytelling class at Campfire. They are an amazing group. I totally recommend them just going. They offer like free classes and they just teach you how to public speak basically. But one thing that they push for or encourage is to give grace. And I feel like that's one thing that I'm like really appreciating and taking away, that nobody's perfect, like Precious was saying. And we all make mistakes. We all might, get sweaty or have dry mouth or trip or whatever. But it's important to give each other grace so that the person who's speaking knows that they won't be judged. And then that's how you kind of make that honest and trustworthy space so that everybody feels comfortable. So yeah, give grace.
I love that.
Thanks, and I'll be quick, but you made me think of something. My name is Renee, and I grew up in Alton, visiting family. I live in New Orleans. I do a lot of work there. But what you said about like these moments of like perceived imperfection, or these moments where our other truths or aspects of ourselves speaking to like that taco feed into these other areas of our lives. As a participant or as a group member, often I actually find that helps me build trust. Like instead of somebody being like the perfect shiny example of everything is just lined up to a T, when I see those moments of humanity, I am actually able to like soften and be more real and authentic. And so whether it's us as the participants sort of like letting down these layers, I think it also is a gift to everyone else in the space because it allows for us to be more authentic. So I just wanted to respond to what y'all were saying. Thank you.
I do have a couple on Zoom. Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. So Marissa from our virtual friends shared, being honest in your space is showing up and embracing all your parts, including quirks, and trust that someone will be attracted to your light. Love that. Thank you, Marissa. Good round of applause. Thank you.
Yes, I love that.
Okay, next, Nancy responded to Marissa and said, I read an article not long ago that pointed out that when people pass, their friends' families share remembrances of them. It's often the quirks that are highlighted and cherished most. Thank you, Nancy. And Logan shared, being honest in your space is being unapologetically yourself without feeling the need to portray a facade for those who are watching. Thank you, Logan.
Yes. Logan hit on a good one about knowing your identity and coming on stage or whatever that you are representing yourself in and being your own. So before we get into our Q&A, I just have one thing that I ask for you all. If you all can open up your journals. Another mic. If you all can open up your journals, and we have one little quick reflection assignment. Yes, sorry. We have one little quick reflection assignment. I know this is like, some kids are right, but I'm telling you, this is actually something that is really be very beneficial for you, because I feel that when you put words on paper, it speaks power, that you're going to manifest that, and then once you keep looking back over that, it's already going to be written down. So I have 3 little fill in the blanks that I want you all to do. The first one is, I use my voice too. The second one is, when I speak up, I want people to feel. And the third one is, one thing I will do to build trust is. So as you are writing these down, I want you to think about, what role do you play in your community? How do you show up in your community? How do you make sure that you are representing others in your community? How will you take that and continue to do the work that is needed in your community? I'm going to give you all 2 minutes. Also, people on Zoom, please feel free to put your answers in the chat box if you would like. Alrighty, I don't know if you all are done yet, but these are for you, and I want you to keep these for you. You don't have to share these out loud because these are something that I want you all to keep sacred to you, if that's okay with everyone. Perfect. Okay, well, let's get into the Q&A. This is the fun part. Does anyone have any questions for me or anyone on Zoom? Something that just sparked their mind or some insight that they can give back to their community? Yes, we have one question.
I'll speak loud for you.
Great presentation. My question to you is there one single point that you can point to in life where you became a leader, or was it a building process that over time, or?
You know, that's a great question. I kind of mentioned it earlier in my speech, but I come from a broken household. I believe that you hear this thing that if you come from a broken household, you won't be successful, or you're going to go down the wrong path, you're not going to have the resources, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But I use that broken household as fuel to the fire for me because I wanted to make sure that I had a future. And I did mention earlier that someone came to me and they were like, oh, you're from Riverview. By the age of 18, a lot of young black males are going to be dead or in prison by this age. Like, telling that to another young person, it can be very deep because I'm like, as a young person, I'm trying to figure out my future. But at the same time, I know that I have to use that as motivation for me to advocate for my peers in the classroom or the people before and after me, any Riverview Gardens graduate, etc. And this is not just Riverview Gardens. This is schools that are provisionally accredited. These are schools that don't have resources, that don't have the necessities that they need. And knowing that I didn't want to be defined by my zip code was also that motivation for me to keep driving. Now, I was always that kid that joined the parent town hall meetings. And they were like, who was that kid in that parent town hall meeting? I'm like, that's me, Precious. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm going to show up. You know, I was the first every elected student representative to the Board of Education for Riverview Gardens School District because I was like, I'm coming to all the board meetings. How can I show up? How can I also be involved in my community? My school district was actually the reason why I got involved. And me coming from that broken household, now we hear that stigma when it comes towards mental health in black households. I wasn't allowed to use my voice. And so everything that my whole foundation on is teaching others and young people to use their voice. That's why I created this book called Why I Use My Voice, because I want young people to know that they can use their voice, but most importantly, be respectful. Sometimes you can tell young people to say how they feel, and they go a whole nother, we give them an inch, they take them out. You know, I'm very honest with you, but those were the things that I had to just keep my drive, and also being around people like you, being around people that were motivating to me, putting me in rooms that I needed to be in. And sometimes I will be in those rooms and I'll only see one young person, if I'm being very honest. But the whole conversation will be about young people. And I'm like, there's no young people in the room, but the conversation is centered around young people. You know, and it's just like, I gotta be in more of these rooms. And I also I would build a network of young people that I knew, because one thing I realized, we do have a lot of young people in St. Louis who care about their community. We're just scattered. But when we come in solidarity, we can make change. So I just started to create a network of young people that were trying to do the work in the St. Louis community and invited them out to those events. And as we can see, as years started to progress, there has been more youth summits and more youth panels and all these things. And to be very honest with you, sometimes young people can be tokenized. When we have these events and then we have a young person speaking on stage, where's the rest of the young people in the room? Where's the resources that are going back into these school districts? When that young person leaves the stage, they're going to go back and live a normal life, whatever life that they're going to live. And we have to make sure that when we are pouring back into young people, that we are giving them things that they can leave and give back into their own prospective communities. So that's just a little bit of the work that I've been doing. I think I went over your question, but it's just more of just advocating in any way, shape, or form by purpose.
Precious, I want to just do a comment and I want to give you your flowers today. And I hope I don't cry because you know the story. My daughter was missing in 2017 and I came across Precious during the social determinants of health. And I think St. Louis County was at its all-time high with young people getting in trouble for the wrong things. And throughout that social determinants of health, you helped me on the sidelines when you didn't know that you were helping me. The first podcast that you pushed out in the community. And I said, I hope one day that I meet you because I hadn't met you at that time. And St. Louis County was pushing to change laws and to help young people find their validity in who they were. And you allowed that space to grow with your voice. And who would have imagined that my daughter would be the next individual to use her voice coming out of trauma? And that step away that you talk about, that tokenism, when the person go back or the young individual go back into their communities, and there's no one to the right of them and there's no one to the left of them to catch them when they make that decision to do wrong, afforded the ability as a mother to continue to keep championing my daughter. I listened to a lot of your podcasts that you have created over a period of time, and I share them through my Instagram to young people that have sponged with me. So just know your due diligence in the community is saving individuals. My daughter graduated from Clark Atlanta University, HBCU, 4 weeks ago with full honors. And as a mother, I was too close to the situation, so I couldn't hear. So if there's any mothers in this room, it's not gonna be sometimes individuals that you think are your friends. It's gonna be strangers that help you get through those difficult moments. And I wanna just say thank you from one mom to the next. She is a future anesthesiologist in the makings. She's currently studying for her MCAT to enter into her med school track. So thank you.
Thank you. How do I come after that? Oh my goodness. That is beautiful. Clark Atlanta. Shout out to Clark Atlanta. I love Clark Atlanta. I have a few sorors that are at Clark Atlanta, so that's amazing. Yes, we have another question.
I just want to know where you read about your book.
Oh. Well, of course, you can get them from me in person. They're also on Amazon. So, yes. I'm actually working on a second one, so coming up, but this is going to be more for middle and high school students. So, yeah. Any other questions? Do we have someone on Zoom? Okay, well, I think this wraps up my session. I thank you all for the kind words. It has been nothing but sweet to just been up here to be able to pour back out into my community. Again, I am driven off purpose because I feel that when you find your purpose and pursue it relentlessly, the world is limitless. So continue to just do the work that is needed in our communities. As young people, they say, I just want to pass the torch down. No, I want you all to be up here with us because we need each other more than we